I should have looked this up earlier. All right. All right, I'm going to start letting people in.
Hey, good evening, everyone.
All right. Hi, Joe. I'm Haley Richards. I'm the league president. I've been emailing you.
Hey, Haley, it's so nice to meet you. Yeah, your
nice.
name your name only shows up in the signature, so it's nice to finally.
Oh, yeah. I know. That's my league email. So anyway, I'm just letting everybody in. So hopefully most people are in, and we'll get started. We'll wait till closer to 6 o'clock, but just I know, and it's kind of stormy at my house, so I'm hopefully that we're not going to have any like technical issues, but anyway, no rain, just some thunder. So that's
We had the same thing. We had some heavy rain and some lightning earlier today.
yes. Well, it's just typical Florida summertime weather. So I missed. Let's see. I think I got everybody that's in the waiting room so far. Good evening, everybody. Lots of league members, and we might have some, community members too. So our audience tonight, I think, is going to be a little mixed. So we'll just see, and then hopefully, in terms of like the Q&A, like once your presentation part is over, I thought we would just have people maybe enter the questions into the chat. And then I think I changed the chat settings to where it comes like to me. And then usually, like if we were in person doing this, we would have index cards and we'd be passing out index cards, and then those would get turned in, and then we kind of filter. Yeah. We don't really filter questions, but sometimes people just ask similar questions, so we kind of group them together. So we'll just see.
That's fine.
See how that goes for tonight, and then we are recording, so we're hopefully going to make this available afterwards as well. So we'll just wait till a little bit closer to 6 o'clock. So if you just joined us, welcome. So this is the League of Women Voters, Pensacola Bay Area hot topic, talking about education legislation and its impacts on local schools and budgets, which I know that is something that many of us are concerned about and have been following a lot over the last year or two. So we're excited to have Joe McGehee with us tonight. So we'll wait a couple more minutes for people to join us. We might wait even a minute or two after 6. So
that's fine with me. You guys are the only thing on my agenda tonight. So
all right, well, good. So
and just feel free to moderate the questions at the end. I reserved some time at the end. I figured instead of going through each and every bill, because there's a lot of education bills, we'd be here all night. I figured I could talk a little bit about the general trend of all the bills that passed, and then we can have a lot more time for Q&A.
Yeah, that sounds good. So we'll have questions. So let me just put a little message in the please. Have some. All right, let's see. I think I got everybody so far. All right, so we'll wait a couple more minutes, and then we have some other folks gonna join us. So if you're just joining us, my name is Haley Richards. I'm your local league president here for the Pensacola Bay Area, which covers Escambia and Santa Rosa County. So that's our kind of service area. And then we have another League of Women Voters in Okaloosa, Walton. So between the two leagues, we kind of cover the westernmost part of Florida. All right. So anyway, I might give people a couple more minutes. I just saw Paula Montgomery joined us. She's actually our local education committee chair, who worked with Elizabeth Huey to kind of organize this. So let's see. All right, yeah. So we'll give, now that it's just now 6 o'clock, so we'll give everybody another minute or so to log in, and then we'll get started. We are recording tonight's meeting, so hopefully we will put this out for those that maybe registered but couldn't join us. Sometimes schedule, we're all kind of around here preparing to go back to school. So anyway, but we'll just see if there's anyone else that joins us in the waiting room. But we got a fair number of our registrations on here. All right, and then if you just joined us, I did put a message in. If you have questions for our speaker, if you could just put those in the chat, and then we'll have some time for Q&A after the presentation. So that is our kind of plan for this evening. I didn't know, Paula, did you want to say anything or no? You have to unmute yourself. Oh, let's see if I can I don't know if I can unmute her.
Well, Paula, you're muted.
Yeah, Paula, you're muted. Hold on, yeah.
Well,
there we go. Yeah. Did you want to say anything?
Yes, I just wanted to say thank you to Mr. McGehee. We have so much going on, and both in the legislature and in the budgeting process, that it's just really hard for me to understand and keep up with it all. So thank you very much. I appreciate you.
I'm so happy to be here, and it is just as difficult for me to keep up with it all, and it's my job full time. So you are not alone.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started for those of us that have joined. So again, welcome everybody. My name is Haley Richards. I'm the president for the League of Women Voters Pensacola Bay Area, and we just heard from Paula Montgomery, who's our local education committee chair. So if you're interested in kind of getting more involved with the league and the work that our education committee is doing, Paula is the person to kind of follow up with, and we can certainly provide her contact information after this is over. So let's see, I'm going to be doing double duty here, trying to get everybody in from the waiting room. So we are gathered on Zoom this evening to talk about education legislation and kind of the impacts that it is going to have on our local schools and school budgets. And so we are delighted to have with us Joe McGehee, who is the Director of Advocacy and Legislative Services with the Florida School Boards Association. So I believe he's coming to us from Tallahassee. And so he joined this team in May of 2025 as their Director of Advocacy and Legislative Services. He brings extensive legal expertise in education law and policy from both his academic background and his time in private practice representing school districts, teachers, and the Department of Education. He oversees legislative affairs and advocacy support. He earned his undergraduate degree in Greek, Latin, and classical civilizations from Florida State University in 2015, and later earned his doctorate in law from Florida State University's College of Law in 2021. While in law school, he founded the Education Law and Policy Society, an organization dedicated to facilitating and training professionals seeking careers in fields related to education policy. Joe is a member in good standing with the Florida Bar and actively serves on the Florida Bar's Education Law Subcommittee. He has previously worked with the Florida Association of District School Superintendents while completing his legal education and actively publishes on topics related to the field of education law in Florida. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it back over to Joe, who's going to get us started with his presentation. And then, as I mentioned earlier, if you just joined us, we're going to do Q&A after his presentation's over. So please feel free to put your questions in the chat, and we'll do our best to kind of navigate that once he's finished. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you all so much for having me. My name is Joe McGehee. I'm here with the Florida School Boards Association, and we are a collection of all the school board members across all 67 of Florida's districts. We're a nonpartisan organization, and we're just dedicated to education policy. And as you can tell from the lovely background that was read, I'm kind of an education law nerd. It's what I wanted to do with my life. So here I am. It's just such an honor to be here, though. Where I'm from, we didn't have a League of Women Voters, but, nonetheless, I was inspired by my mom. She raised my brothers and I on her own, and she became the first female vice mayor in our town's history. I'm from a very small Virginia town you've never heard of, but at an early age, she instilled the importance of democratic participation in the system and motivated me to make, getting involved a career. So I just deeply, deeply respect what the League stands for and what you all do and what you're seeking to accomplish. Women have more than a vote. They have a voice, they have a presence, and they continue to inspire us all to keep fighting for the change we want in our world. So I feel so honored to be here. Paula asked that I speak to you all about the most recent legislative session, the bills that passed, the overall state of public education in Florida. So I guess what we can do is I'll discuss a little bit about this most recent session because there's kind of a story there, as there always is. And I even have a little slideshow that shows the Florida School Board's legislative platform for the last session and how those items went for us. I also have just about every education bill. I have a slide on every single education bill that passed. But in the interest of time, I think it's probably best that I condense this to maybe just the overall themes of all the bills that were passed, the trajectory that education is going in Florida. And that way you all won't fall asleep on me and we can be out of here at a nice orderly time. So, and we'll also have a lot more time for Q&A. This session's drama sort of started before the scheduled legislative session even began. As you guys probably already know, in an even numbered year, session will be January, February. In an odd numbered year, it's March, April, always 60 days, always scheduled 60 days, I should say. Governor DeSantis, though, he wanted an early special session in January to address illegal immigration, condominium law reform, hurricane relief, and I think he also wanted election reform, all done in one special session. The House and Senate leaders, they all called this special session unnecessary and adjourned pretty much immediately after convening. They then called their own special session and they focused only on illegal immigration. And what you can see here is that, you know, the governor is asking the legislature for something, the legislature is saying, yeah, we'll do a little bit of what you want. And, you know, that's just going to cause a rift, right? All this stuff comes down to his personalities and it's just going to cause a rift. The legislature passed a bill, but the governor threatened to veto it, and they were essentially gridlocked for another 2 weeks. They eventually reached consensus in a third legislative session and passed a bill on immigration that was signed into law. But despite reaching a consensus, there was still this sort of lingering tension between the executive and the legislative branches, and that's going to shake out over the course of 2025's regular session, right? As I said earlier, it should have been March through April. Session was scheduled for those 60 days. However, it started in March and it wasn't over until over halfway through June. We ended up with a budget, you know, late June, right before the fiscal new year begins, July 1st. So the infighting was bad, right? And as you all have seen, there are just a lot of parties vying for more influence as the governor gets ready to enter his final year. The Speaker of the House and the Senate President both having very public disagreements with him on policy initiatives that were championed by the governor. So just sort of because of all of that, it was kind of a pressure cooker up at the Capitol, and session lasted 105 days, 45 days over what it was supposed to be. So what did we get at the end of a 105-day session? In short, from an education lens, chaos. You know, the budget reconciliation meetings saw many different projects and proposed law changes get dropped or supplemented. So what I'm going to show you all is sort of the legislative platform of the causes that FSBA championed or defended and the outcome of these items at the end of a very long session. And before, oh, it says the host isn't allowing sharing for this meeting. I was going to share my screen. Could you give me some, there we go.
Did that work, making you a co-host?
Let's see. Oh, yep, here it is.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
All right. Can everyone see this?
Yes, I can see it.
All right, so this is a PowerPoint that was made by Gray Robinson on behalf of FSBA for presentation to our members. So you all are getting some excellently crafted inside information. But I wanted to show you all, this is the total budget. This is everything that your state government allocates money on throughout the legislative session. And as you can see, that total is $115.1 billion. That's a lot of money. The K through 12 education budget is $20.9 billion. It all goes to administering our K through 12 system. And that appropriation may not seem like a big chunk, but after healthcare, it's the single biggest chunk. So as you can see, I just wanted to show you guys just how legislated K through 12 is. And I have I'm going to stop sharing this. I'm going to reshare it here in a minute. But the thing I want to show you all is this book. This is all the Florida school laws from the year 2000. I want you to see how thick it is. And somewhere around my desk. And, you know, though this is kind of thick, I'm sure a Lord of the Rings novel is probably a little bit longer. Now I want to hold it up next to the 2024 Florida school law. That's the maroon one here in my hand. This thing is almost twice as long. You'd sooner get through an entire set of Encyclopedia Britannica before you'd finish this monster. Um, so what does that mean? It means that we're legislating education now more than ever. There are more laws, there are new laws, and we're changing the laws all the time. As Miss Montgomery was saying earlier, she said it's just so hard to keep up with it all. Well, I'm paid to keep up with it all for a living, and I have trouble keeping up with it all. So that's just how it goes. And so now I want to show you guys our legislative platform. Let me share my screen again. All right, can everybody see this? All right, got a thumbs up. Good. So this platform is not built by me or by FSBA as an organization, but it's built and voted on by school board members across the entire state. FSBA as an organization is nonpartisan, and we do not champion any cause that's going to divide our membership. And by that I mean divide school board membership. So these are things, generally speaking, that are helpful across all school districts, no matter your political affiliation, no matter if you're Panhandle or in Key West, right? These are things that we generally champion, things that help everybody. So, and at the end of session, we make these report cards. We generally like to indicate how things came out. We use green, yellow, or red to determine how it went for the public school districts. And before I get into the weeds of how session went, I'm going to use something, I'm going to say BSA a lot. And what I mean by that is base student allocation. You guys probably already know this, but I'm just going to go ground level here. Um, that BSA, that base student allocation, is essentially the money that follows every student. So every student that goes to a public education entity in Florida gets appropriated so much money from the government. And that's what a BSA is. It just means for every student in this classroom, the government gives the district this much money. So just that way we know that. So first up, the number one thing that was on our priority list was hurricane relief and community resilience, right? What we were doing was we were trying to hold districts harmless that were impacted by Helene and Milton. And what do I mean by hold harmless? I mean that if that BSA, if the total student enrollment was impacted by a hurricane destroying your school, well, now you need the money more than ever, so we can't just take the money, away from you because the student has to go somewhere else. So that was one of many things we were doing for hurricane relief. And how did that go? Well, we got 3 million provided from the Hurricane Catastrophe Fund, but why is that yellow and not green? Because we really needed a lot more. But it's not red because in this age of budget cuts and fiscal kind of constrained districts and state budgets, getting anything can be a win, right? So 3 million was allocated towards helping our schools recover from hurricanes. Also, you're going to see this phrase called administrative efficiency. And what we mean by that is school districts want to make the administration of the school district more efficient, right? That seems obvious. But what does that mean? It means that we have a lot of reporting that the state implements. What we try to do is eliminate some of the redundant reporting. We want to make everything streamlined. We want to make everything a little quicker. We want to make it a little less bureaucratic. We want to serve our students, our community. We want to do it all very quickly. So we had a lot of different bullet points on here. We wanted to change the school start times. I don't know if you guys remember this. I talked earlier about how when the legislature gets involved in K through 12, K through 12 is very legislated. It's a whole chunk of the budget. That means they're introducing a ton of laws. That's why this 2024 school law book is as thick as the drywall here. But what I mean that to say is that sometimes legislating a lot, it means that it's not falling off the wayside. They're not neglecting it, but it might mean that a lot of what gets passed doesn't always help. What was one thing that didn't help? Well, in 2023, they passed a law about school start times mandating a specific start time. What the legislature and what FSBA didn't even realize at the time was that mandating that completely changed some districts' transportation schedules, and it caused a lot of snafus that ended up in a lot of extra expenses for our school districts. We also wanted to reduce, unnecessary reporting. We wanted to streamline reporting. We had a lot of different things we wanted to do for administrative efficiency. How did we do on that? Well, we got the school start times bill adjusted to allow districts to democratically kind of select when they want to start. The state isn't necessarily telling them when to start now. That's a big win. Certain other things just didn't gain traction. Certain things weren't able to move through the legislature. I think they passed around 2,000 bills this session. So a lot goes through and a lot doesn't go through. And this, I have some blurbs on the administrative efficiency bills, but we can just skip through that. That'll put you right to sleep. Attendance and accountability. This was a really big deal to public school districts all across Florida. Essentially, we want to address chronic absenteeism, right? When kids are missing from school, there's something else going on. It could be abuse, it could be neglect, it could be depression, mental health, it could be anything. So what we wanted to do was we wanted to have an intervention process after 10 absences. But the current law said that you can only intervene if it's 10 absences within a 90-day period. So what we tried to do was amend that law to essentially say, all right, you can intervene sooner. You don't have to wait 90 days. And how did that one go for us? I have it marked as yellow, right? And what you'll see here is that the House passed a bill, the Senate had a companion bill that never made it. So this didn't pass. The reason why it's not red is because both the House and the Senate companion bills had totally different aims about how to address this. And it became such a mess that it's almost a good thing that it didn't pass because we wouldn't have been able to have reconciled it. We would have been dealing with a bigger problem. So the reason I have it marked as yellow is because both the House and the Senate are very familiar with this issue. They know what needs to be done, and usually it takes things a couple sessions to make it through. I fully anticipate this to be on the minds of a lot of our legislators and for this to make it all the way through on the next session. School safety and law enforcement support. I'll talk about this when I talk about just the trends that we see among all the different laws that are passed. School safety is a big deal. Florida has had school shootings. We've had a lot of different safety concerns, and there are lots of different proposed solutions to address this. So FSBA was championing in consultation with our school safety officers, with our superintendents, our guardians, and all law enforcement. We wanted to sort of remove what we call glitches. There were some glitches in the implementation of guardian bills and certain other school safety measures. There were issues with locking doors, keeping things safe. So what we wanted to do was pass laws that helped remedy a lot of that, and all of that passed. The legislature takes school safety very seriously. Those bills get heard, and for better or for worse, they pass through very quickly. Education funding and fiscal responsibility. This is where we get into the weeds a little bit. But to give you the 30,000-foot overhead here, FSBA, after consulting with all of our school districts, we thought we could really push for a base student allocation, that BSA I talked about earlier. We wanted to increase it by 5%, right? That has meant we want 5% more going to every student, to every district. We also wanted to increase mental health allocations. We wanted to support workforce development. We wanted to provide full-time pre-K through 12 to give every family access to a free public and high-quality full-time program. One blurb I included here is that 77% of children who successfully complete VPK demonstrate kindergarten readiness. It's a huge number for Florida. How do we do on all of this? You'll see a lot of yellow. For increasing the BSA, we got about 1.59%. I know what you're thinking, Joe, if you wanted 5% and they gave you 1.5%, why is that not red? How is that a loss? Guys, right now we're in the middle of both federal and state budget cuts. Everybody wants to spend less. People are getting elected by campaigning on spending less. It's very important to everyone right now. So the fact that we got any kind of increase, we are very grateful for, and we want to keep that trend going. Even if that small increase means that districts might be out more money because of the increase in costs. That's still an increase. We're still very happy with it. We just need to get a little bit more, and we're going to try next session. Mental health allocation funding was maintained. And what that means is they didn't change it at all. But when something's on that budget, the budget goes through the Senate, it goes through the House, it also goes through the governor's veto pen. So for something to stay and not get changed at all in these times where there's a lot of infighting is actually a huge win. Same thing goes for the safe schools allocation. They're not messing with that at all. We wanted to see it increased a little bit, but we're happy that it's not cut. The Workforce Development Capitalization Incentive Grant Program, that received about 40 million. Certain other things just didn't gain traction. Free VPK didn't get a lot of traction. There's just not enough time to get everything in that we want. And that's it on the legislative platform. And just to go into a little bit about the different trajectories, I'm going to say, right? Like if we had to group all these different bills that passed for education, which I think, well over 30, maybe I think 90 bills total made it all the way through. Some are still waiting on a signature. But what's helpful to see is just the overall trend, right? And what is the legislature looking at what will they continue to look at? And I can tell you first and foremost is school safety. Comprehensive safety infrastructure, they always want to legislate, they always want to deal with. The most striking trend this season, and I think this was about 30%, is like a third of all the bills passed was school safety. Um, it's about going far beyond traditional school security measures. It's about creating comprehensive health safety nets for students. And now also there's another bill, Senate Bill 1470. All classroom doors have to remain locked when occupied by students, and all access points to school grounds must be closed and locked during school hours. That's huge. That's also a big ask for a lot of our districts because a lot of them have to completely change their locks, right? Because we can't always send someone out to lock the door and lock the door. So that's huge. Another trend you all will see, sort of expanding the athletic opportunities for non-traditional students. That falls into school choice. That's another big trend. So it's a little contentious in Florida, but the current administration has a longstanding commitment to school choice. And I think the last three administrations in Florida have been very committed to school choice. What that means is that BSA follows the student under certain circumstances. If they want to leave their public school, they can go somewhere else, and that BSA allocation that I've been talking about all night goes with them. So you see that with certain sports enrollment, right? Charter and homeschooled private school kids can now come participate in public school events under Senate Bill 248. There's also a lot of legislation revolving around transforming the educator workforce. They've been trying this for the last 4 or 5 years. We have a teacher shortage in Florida. What do we do? Well, we're getting creative in Florida. Current administration wants our teachers prepared to handle a ton of events as well, from school shootings to human trafficking and minor abuse, right? Our teachers have to be equipped. They're mandatory reporters. They have to look at everything. And you're going to see that reflected through the Guardian program fixes as well as House Bill 1237. That one requires all public school personnel who have contact with students to complete human trafficking awareness training. Now, that's not just teachers, that's anybody who deals with students. That's your principal, that's your school counselor, that's even your cafeteria workers. Everybody has to undergo mandatory human trafficking awareness training now. So, where does that leave us? What's on the horizon for Florida's education system? Well, rather than providing broad guidance and letting local districts implement, I think our lawmakers are more following the trend of prescribing specific solutions. We're going to give very direct marching orders so that there's no room for interpretation. We want everything done uniformly across the state. So, you know, from exactly when students can use their phones to what medical equipment schools have available, the state's kind of giving specific solutions. This represents both strong legislative engagement with education issues and maybe a little bit of concern about local implementation of state priorities, right? We also want our local districts to have a lot of say over what happens because they're the ones that are there, they're the boots on the ground. So there's a lot of give and take here, a lot of tug of war, if you will. For parents, educators, and community members, these changes will create a significantly different educational environment over the next few years, right? And you can already see it. If you talk to students now, my fiance teaches K through 12. When she tells me what the students say, I don't even understand. I need a translator. It's in English, but I need a translator. You know, I don't know what skibbity is. I don't know what all this different stuff is they're talking about. But that's going to happen even more, I think, at an increased volume as these new laws take shape and as more laws pass. Schools are going to look and feel different. And so we just have to keep our eyes on it. We need to keep our fingers on the pulse, and we need to also measure the effectiveness of our implementation of these laws. Um, and then Paul and I were also talking about ways to be involved. And one thing I want to tell you guys is, in addition to tracking this, in addition to keeping in touch with your community and your education system and figuring out what works and what doesn't, make sure to call your representatives. Don't just call the local ones. Don't just call the state ones. Call your federal ones. They actually have people employed in their offices who are paid to pick up the phone and make note of what you say. So, and I'm telling you that a lot of that, it carries weight. For example, July 1st, the federal administration withheld about $6 billion in federal education funds for all education systems across all 50 states. They held it. They didn't take it away, they didn't cut it, but Congress appropriated it, and on July 1st, they froze it to do a programmatic review. Well, what happened? A ton of people who cared a lot about their local communities engaged their politicians. And a lot of those politicians sent letters to DOE and had meetings, and within a few weeks, all the funds got released. So please don't doubt the power of your voice, the power to be engaged. That's the number one way that sets us apart, I think. So I've certainly lectured long enough. I hope I haven't gone on too long. I wanted to save some time for some Q&A from the league. So I guess, Haley, do we have any questions?
Yes, we have a couple questions to get us started. And then, so if you have questions or, as other questions are asked and answers, then hopefully we can get them. I try, let me see. Let's see if everyone, I might hear. Some people were having a little trouble, but I did get a couple. So we'll start with the first one. So the first one says, do you predict any movement on accountability measures for schools that accept vouchers or charter schools, as in making them accountable to the same rules that public schools have to follow? So it's that accountability for vouchers and for schools who accept vouchers or charter schools who accept vouchers. Are they going to ever have to follow the same rules as public schools? So that's the first.
I think the short answer to that question is yes, right? I think they will eventually, they have to. Some, depending on the charter and depending on the administrator of the school, some of them already are, right? And you see it in a place like Leon County where FSU, FAMU, and Tallahassee State College all have their own charters. They're all beholden to the vast majority of the public education laws in the state. And I do think that the trend going forward with charter schools is going to see them be a little more accountable, because I think the purpose of the charter school is that they view it as more effective. So they did have it sort of exempt from some of the reporting and a lot of when we talked about administrative efficiency earlier, charter schools are very administratively efficient. Why? They don't have as many reporting requirements. But I do think that as more students go to charters and as more people want to open charters, there will be the door open to the extra level of accountability. So I do think that's an excellent question. And whoever asked that, I think they definitely see the writing on the wall. There will be a lot of that reporting implemented to charter schools.
Yeah. What about for schools that accept vouchers?
Schools that accept vouchers,
maybe like private. I think they're probably alluding to private schools. They didn't say private schools, but I'm just going to go out on the limb and say they're probably alluding to private schools or religious-based schools that accept public dollars.
Private school legislation is up and down in Florida. It's hard to tell where it's going to go. I can tell you that part of what makes them competitive, part of their business model, is that they plan to stay exempt from a lot of that. And their legislative affairs people work very hard to keep them out of a lot of it. You'll notice that the human trafficking training bill applies only to public school workers and not just teachers. So as far as schools that accept vouchers, I'm not sure what future levels of accountability they'll see, but I can tell you that the legislation tends to follow the money. And if the money continues going to private schools, if these vouchers, the needle slides even further over and more kids are going to private schools, there will be an increased level of accountability. There just has to be. But as of right now, as of next session, maybe even the session after that, I don't think we're going to see too much in that regard.
All right. So the next question says, do you see any movement predicted on changing the rules for Medicaid so that schools can start recouping that money?
That's a difficult question. I can't go into it too much because we've been involved in some talks regarding that with certain federally elected representatives. And some of the conversations have gone really well, some haven't. And just to let you behind the curtain a little bit, what I'm seeing is some people think that the Medicaid funding ballooned during COVID and never came back down. And so that's why they've taken aim at it. And they're saying, listen, during lockdowns, we increased and sent a ton more money to education than we ever did before, and we didn't cut back on all that. Now, I can't necessarily say I agree with that take because I'm also seeing the other side of the ball, which is school costs are going up. Inflation has hit our schools. We have more fiscally constrained districts than ever. So all that to say, the Medicaid thing is really up in the air. We are working on it. As I speak to you, we are working on it.
All right. Next question says, if school choice funds are included, is student population adjusted as well to not overinflate the per student allocation or the base student allocation?
Can you give me that question again? I'm sorry.
If school choice funds are included, is the student population adjusted to not overinflate like the base student allocation. So like even because the money follows the student. So like if you say, oh, well, this, X number of students are at a school, but then maybe like a percentage of those students opt to go somewhere else. How are those numbers reflected in kind of the formula that they give for student funding?
Yeah, and that's a good question because that's been in the news recently. Because I think they accounted for a statewide shortage of about $40 million. And they're saying that a lot of that 40, I think it's 47 million, a lot of that is from students who start at homeschool, and that BSA is sent to the homeschooling authority, the parent. And a few months in, the student, they move or they decide it's too much, they put the student in public school. There appears to be no mechanism, at least no open, publicly available mechanism by which we can track and by which that money goes to the public school. What we're seeing is that that money doesn't have to be refunded, and that student attends the school district without that BSA, and that's what we're seeing. I think they've accounted statewide that's around 47 million with that, and I think a few other issues. So that's an excellent question. That's also being figured out by DOE right now.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then the next question says, book bans are big in our county. Is there any hope for less enforcement around rules related to books and what books can be read and who decides?
That's an interesting phrasing of the question. And I'll
Yes.
say that in Florida, you will never see a decrease in enforcement. Just last week, I mean, we have a new commissioner of the Department of Education in Florida, Anastasios Komatsas, I believe is his name. And he put out a letter last week. They found out about this app called Beanstack, and it's I don't know much about Beanstack, but from talking to our school board members, it's a virtual sort of database that encourages kids to read. A lot of our school district libraries use it. It's a way to have reading lists. It's a way to incentivize reading. You have like checklists and you have rewards and things like that. And I think that Beanstack had an LGBTQ reading list on there, just one of their many things they have on there. And our school districts were ordered to stop hosting Beanstack over it. So if there's a law in the books, it's going to be enforced in Florida. That's just the way it is. But if I may take your question to the next level, and that is, are we going to stop legislating about banned books? I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, and I think it certainly won't end while Governor DeSantis is in office because this is something big. He campaigned on this. He champions a lot of these causes. He champions a lot of this legislation himself. So I don't think that it will stop. I think that there will be more of it. But with the next administration, there's always a chance they say, hey, listen, we pretty much banned all the books. What else can we ban? So I'm certainly, I look at these things as a citizen, as a voter myself, and then I look at these under my professional lens at FSBA. And all we can do under our professional lens is just observe the facts and report on them to our school board members and help them make the most informed decisions they can.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then the next question set. And then, of course, if anyone else has questions, you can put them in the chat. That's kind of how we're handling Q&A. So it says, how much money is I think it says BPA, but I think they might mean base student allocation. If the money is used for the student to go to a voucher school and the student ends up returning to public school, how much of the money returns to the public school?
That's a good question. And again, I'm not sure how DOE tracks this because it's not publicly available yet. They may not even have a track. It may not be impossible to track. But one thing I want to get into is that when I referred to BSA, it sounded like it's a very uniform number for every student. It's this. But all of our BSAs, I mean, we have these things called weighted BSAs, right? Weighted FTE, weighted full-time enrollment. What that means is if you have a student that is doing dual enrollment classes at your local college, well, you as the school district have to pay for that, but that's in addition to the BSA. That's an extra cost, right? So certain students get a higher BSA. Students with special needs, learning disabilities, their BSA is going to look a little different. So a lot of these BSAs look different, and this is why the calculations every quarter for the school districts are kind of a nightmare. It makes you want to pull your hair out because everyone is so different and the numbers are all so different. But when a student shifts, the BSA is supposed to follow them. However, a lot of this stuff is issued as districts on the July 1st. So I'm not sure. I think there is a mechanism when they leave and go to the charter school, the money goes. if they were to leave to go back to public school, I actually do not know if that money is there or what money is left, or if it's all just one pool and it's impossible to track. So that's an excellent question. That's something I need to look into myself.
Yeah, I know the school funding is of big interest to our league members. Let's see. Next question says, are there any counties that are currently tracking how many students accept a voucher and then return to the public school?
That's a good question too. I'm sure some do. I'm sure those with a lot of charters and those that are fighting with their charters want that information. I can tell you that just as an organization, FSBA, we track a lot of the metrics that are important to our districts, a lot of the things they talk about, and we don't have that exact number in-house. But I guarantee you that in our smaller districts, you're going to see a lot of that tracking, and they're going to have those numbers down because there's not as many students to vary the numbers. So if someone leaves and goes charter, comes back, or leaves go private, comes back, leaves go homeschool and comes back, they should have that number. But as far as FSBA goes, we do not have that number for the districts. They're usually holding that themselves.
All right. And those are all the questions we've gotten so far in the chat, unless anyone else is thinking of one or how to word one. Paula, did you have anything else you wanted to specifically ask or address? Or here, we'll have to I don't know if I can unmute you. You have to unmute yourself. You have to unmute yourself, Paula. Yeah.
No,
there you go.
I was real interested in the money following the students and then not coming back to the school district, and he answered that. So
okay,
thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else? We did have one other, I don't know if everyone saw it, but one of our attendees wanted to highlight that I guess it's the next Escambia County School Board meeting. It's happening on Thursday. There's a proposal by the superintendent for, in terms of the budget, that's going to be a 1.5 millage increase in the district's capital outlay budget. So I don't know if Paula, how the committee, I know we do have league members that go and observe school board meetings, and they're kind of following some of the book banning related topics as well as others. But anyway, that looks like that might be discussed. So they were just asking, for people to be aware of that. Because it says
if a couple of special meetings. And
yes, it says
if not gone to those.
So. Yeah, it says if approved, this would add an additional $52 million to the district budget, which is projected this coming year to see another decline in state funds due to declining enrollment. So anyway, school board meeting is at 5 p.m. on Thursday, July 31st to debate the tax increase. So if you're interested in doing that, you can go and hear and, decide if you wanted to speak or whatever. So anything else for our speaker? I haven't seen, let's see, I'm gonna go through one more time. I haven't seen any other questions come in. So I just want to say a big thank you to Paula and her committee for helping get our speaker for tonight kind of, as the session kind of, went a little bit longer, and, Florida is always, there's never a shortage of an issue to follow or keep tabs on or to advocate for. And then that's part of our job as the league to try to help, keep our, not only our members informed, but just the greater community, parents and that type of thing. So we are, like I said at the beginning of this, we are recording this presentation. So we're going to hopefully get that up on our website, YouTube channel. So be on the lookout for that. And we can send out a link to our members and for those who weren't able to join us for this evening. But thank you again, everyone, for coming. Thank you, Paula, and your committee for helping get this organized. I believe the education committee for the league is meeting this Thursday. So we do have information about that on our website. And then our next league event, I would not be doing a good job as your president if I didn't advertise. Our next topic is going to be on immigration. So that's going to be August 14th at 5 p.m. That meeting is going to be in person. This was something that we had planned in the spring, but then had to kind of cancel. So this is a rescheduled meeting. And so if you want to join us, all those details as well are on our website, social media, that type of thing. So thank you all for coming, and we hope to see you at a future league meeting. And if you're not already a member, we'd encourage you to join. You can do that also on our website. It's very easy. So thank you all for coming. Thank you, Joe. It was nice to meet you, even just via Zoom. And thank you so much for sharing all this great information with us and answering our
Nice to meet you.
questions. Yeah.
And if you or your members have any follow-up questions or just something, if you're like me, I'll think of something brilliant at around 1 a.m.
Oh, okay. I know. That's always hard. Oh, we did get one more thing. One
Okay.
more question. It says, do you have any comments about ICE and what ICE is potentially doing in schools?
Yeah, I mean, ICE agents, I think, do have the authority to enter schools, and there has been preemptive legislation passed that says, interfering with this has significant criminal and civil repercussions. I can just tell you guys, if anyone here is an educator, I can tell you to talk to both your administrator, your principal, your vice principal, and also talk to your school board, to have your school board members, superintendents talk to their attorneys and advise on what to do. Every single teacher should be having some kind of instruction booklet on how their administration wants to handle ICE in the classroom. But as you can see now, Florida's going to have doors locked. So the only people getting in are people the administration blesses, hopefully. But yes, the ICE thing is up in the air as it's ever evolving. And I don't envy anyone who's struggling to deal with ICE right now.
All right. Well, thank you. Now I just happened to see that come in. Last minute question. All right. Well, thank you again. And I will go ahead and close out our Zoom session, and we'll look for the recording later. So we will
Thank you all so much.
later. All righty. Thank you. Bye.